This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
A Torah Anytime original series.
I once walked into the Eitzer of BMG looking for a sefer and ran into my friend Reb Shmuel Bogart. And after schmoozing for a few minutes, I asked him for a vart from his illustrious grandfather, Rabbi Bressler, the Rosh Yeshiva of the Scranton Yeshiva, and he told me the following fantastic vart. The famous giant Oig desperately wanted to marry Avram's wife, Sarah. Now, even though he was a massive giant and pretty immoral man, he still wanted to marry her, despite her being a tzaddikus and probably not interested in the shidduch at all. Nevertheless, he wanted to marry Sarah, to tap into the greatness that she was blessed with. And Oig waited for the chance to marry her, and one day he found his opportunity. The pasuk says, "Vayavo apalit vayagid la'Avram ha'ivri." Oig ran with glee to tell Avram that his nephew Lot was captured by the mighty kings of those days, and Oig thought that Avram would run off to save his nephew, or try to, and inject himself into this international war that was going on, and then get killed in the process, and Sarah would finally be his for the taking. Now, we all know the story. Avram did not get killed, and he successfully extracted Lot from his captives, and Oig's devious plan was foiled. But let's take a step back for a second. What in the world was Oig thinking with this plan? How crazy did he think Avram was that he would just inject himself into an international war consisting of some of the mightiest and most brutal nations in all of human history? The modern day equivalent would be one man attempting to save his nephew being held captive by the North Korean army in some impenetrable fortress. What exactly was Oig thinking? The answer, says Rabbi Bressler, lies in the word ha'ivri. Notice how the pasuk says, "Vayagid la'Avram ha'ivri," and not just Avram. This pasuk is one of the only times in the entire Torah that Avram is called Avram ha'ivri. Why is that? The word ha'ivri literally means that he comes from the other side of the river. But it's used here to brand Avram as the one who had the courage to stand up for his belief, even if all the other people in the world were on the other side. It is used here to remind us who Avram was, a man who stood firm in his convictions, even in the face of sneering and laughing and eye-rolling from others. He believed in Hashem so deeply that no amount of ridicule and scorn could make him change his mind. That was how Avram discovered monotheism in a world of polytheism and was mocked and laughed at the world over. He was persecuted and abused. He was thrown into fiery furnaces, but it made no difference to him. He was firm as a rock. And Oig knew this about Avram. Oig liked this trait very much in Avram because it meant that when he heard that his nephew's life was in danger, it would make no difference how crazy it would be to help him. Oig knew that Avram was a man who did the right thing for one reason and one reason only, because it's the right thing to do, even if it meant waging a war, 1 on 10,000. Some call it crazy, other people call it dedication. Oig happily ran to tell Avram ha'ivri, the man of passion and motivation, that his nephew was captured, hoping Avram would die. But he didn't. He survived, because that's who we are, people who do things because it's the right thing to do. I was once delivering a class to a bunch of Jewish students in Princeton University and bumped into Princeton's plasma physics professor, Professor Fish, a very nice, wise Jewish man, and he told me something fascinating. He said, in all my 50 plus years in teaching in colleges and universities, I have noticed that there are extremely few Jewish math or history professors, and an unusually high number of physics and psychology and economics and sociology professors who are Jewish. And he said he has a theory why. He said when Avram Avinu had the mental fortitude to wage an intellectual war with the entire world, defending monotheism in a world of polytheism, he injected into his descendants, for the duration of history, the natural desire to probe and intellectually attack and explore new vistas in thought. Jews don't like teaching knowledge. that is mere history or set in place and stale and it's unchanging. Jews intrinsically need to question, to inquire, to ask questions, to hypothesize, to stare down theories that the entire world assumes to be true and then replace it with better ones. The Jews are the most radically transformative group of people on earth, and it's all because of Avram Avinu. Avram's outlook on the world has lived on in us, and we too look out in the world with eyes filled with curiosity and wonder, ready to explore the wisdom and the grandeur of the truth of Hashem. Now listen to this. Today, hospital operating rooms are the very image of cleanliness and sterile and precise and controlled. Every glove, every mask, every instrument is sanitized and spotless. But 150 years ago, the world didn't exist. It's almost impossible to imagine. But 100 years ago, nearly half of all surgical patients died after their operations. Not from the procedure itself, but from infection. As the famous saying went, the operation was a success, but the patient died. A mother giving birth in a hospital was 5 times more likely to die than one giving birth at home, and doctors were bewildered. Now, in those days, doctors didn't wash their hands, they didn't sterilize their tools. They went from one patient to the next, from dissecting corpses to delivering babies, sometimes still wearing the same blood-stained apron. And no one knew why people kept dying, because back then the concept of germs, those invisible killers, was a mystery. The greatest minds in medicine laughed at the idea that something unseen could cause death. So then what was causing all the death in the hospitals when all the surgeries were being done successfully? Comes along a man named Joseph Lister, a quiet, deeply religious English surgeon, and he was horrified by the number of people dying in his care. And as he searched for an answer, he came across a part of the Torah where Hashem commanded Klal Yisrael to wash themselves after coming in contact with the sick or the dead. Now, obviously that mitzvah is about Tumah and Tahara, spiritual purity. But Lister wondered, perhaps Hashem in his infinite wisdom was also teaching something deeper. Perhaps the same act that cleansed spiritually could also protect us physically. So combined with the new discoveries of Louis Pasteur, Lister realized that the Torah's ancient command might actually hold the secret to saving lives. So he took a stand. He told surgeons to start washing their hands, to sterilize their instruments, to keep the operating rooms clean. And they mocked him. They called him eccentric and delusional and a religious fanatic. Even his nurses complained about the extra work. But Lister didn't care. He believed that God had revealed a truth, and he wasn't going to back down. And slowly, the results spoke for themselves. The death rates in his ward plummeted, and patients who once would have died were now living. And the world began to notice. And soon, hospitals everywhere adopted his methods, and modern surgery was born. In the world of health, there is before Lister and there's after Lister. That's how much he changed medicine. Even Listerine, that mouthwash, was named after him, a nod to the man who brought cleanliness and life and healing because he dared to follow the truth when the rest of the world laughed at him. But here's what really hit me. Lister stood alone because he had conviction, because he believed in the truth even when no one else did. And that courage to stand up for the truth is the heartbeat of the Jewish people. For thousands of years, we've been the same way. The world goes one way and we go another. They mock and they laugh and they scorn, and yet we stand tall. We see corruption and moral decay and falsehood, and like Avram Avinu, we stand on one side of the river while the entire world stands on the other. We speak truth. We defend morality. We bring light even when it's unpopular, even when it's dangerous, because that's who we are. We are B'nai Avram Ha'ivri, the people who crossed over. We don't follow trends, we define them. We don't bend to the world, we elevate it. We don't raise the bar, we are the bar. So the next time the world laughs at what you stand for, remember Joseph Lister, remember Avram Ha'ivri, because we are the nation that has stood for truth, no matter the cost. And we will keep standing and keep roaring and keep lighting up the world no matter who stands against us.
You've You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.